I'm starting a day of Cover Crop 101 with Meghan Zobeck of Burgess Cellars, and we're in a little parcel here that she calls Les Abeilles. And you like this part because it's one of the first vineyards you started working with when you joined the Heights Burgess team. And what's going on at your feet?
So right now we have a bunch of different cover crop. They're all not up yet. Usually we have a great deal of peas. I think those will be coming up next. We have some mustard. We have a lot of clover. Like I said, peas will be coming in next. We have quite an array of cover crops.
And how did this sort of formulate or bring into focus for you what you wanted to do in terms of cover crop when you were working with vineyards?
You know, because it was the first vineyard that I really got to work with when I was hired on, this is kind of where we started experimentation with different cover crops and with grazing and different styles of cover crop management. So I'd say this is kind of really where the discussion of cover crop started.
This is your cover crop lab.
Exactly.
Okay, and then we're going to go see two spots where you actually put it into actual performance. One on the valley floor and one on the mountainside.
Let's do it.
Okay. So I'm here with Meghan Zobeck today. She's the winemaker at Burgess Cellars, and we're in the Quartz Creek Vineyard in the Oak Knoll AVA of Napa Valley. And you got a little history here first on how Burgess came to work with the Quartz Creek Vineyard. Tell us about that.
Yes, so it kind of comes full circle. Our original owner at Burgess, Tom Burgess, owned the vineyard, then sold it to Joe Heights. And then when our owner, Galen Lawrence, purchased Heights and then Burgess, he returned it back to Burgess.
Okay, and we're here to talk cover crop today because it's mustard season. We got a little bit of the yellow flowers peeking up. This is when everyone in Napa Valley driving up and down the highway pulls over without a turn signal. So you get their photograph in front of a vineyard with mustard. It's very colorful, it's very photogenic. But there's something going on here. So let's talk about cover crop. What goes on in this vineyard, which is flat and has pretty healthy vines going on, that you need cover crop for, and why mustard?
Well, we love cover crop for the biodiversity and to help increase the microbial load in the soils. Mustard in particular has a benefit because it actually repels nematodes. So it's a brassica. So brassica naturally they're a biofumigant, so they actually kill nematodes, which is fantastic.
And those are the little bugs that can bring stuff that we don't want for the vine health.
Yes, right. They munch on the roots of the vines.
Right. So when you say microbial activity, what are you referring to?
So we're referring to all the little bacteria and fungi in the soils, and the reason you like those in the vineyards is because they help with nutrient delivery to the vines.
Okay. And then what are some of the things that cover crop does in this vineyard that you find beneficial in addition to microbial activity and keeping the nematodes away?
So in this vineyard in particular, we have a bit of a radish mix, and that helps break up the soils. So if you think about the roots when they expand, they're aerating the soils. And the reason you want that is for water penetration and then also for oxygen delivery to the microbes that are living in the soils. In addition to that, we also have some nitrogen fixers. So clover, we have some legumes, so that helps with the nutrient balance in the soils. And then also we are looking at some grasses that help regulate water in the soils, so water balance. But really the radish with the compaction is kind of what we're looking at.
Now the mustard is popular because it's sort of the cover crop that's been in the valley for a while before cover crop became as popular as it is now. It's definitely a trend, I think you would agree, in the valley to move towards cover crop. But there are other things that go into a cover crop, and there are other decisions that have to be made. Not one size fits all, right? So there's differences between what you might do here in this flat vineyard than what you might, say, do on a hillside vineyard.
Absolutely.
And you have some hillside vineyards.
Yes, we do.
So we're going to go there next, right?
Sounds good.
Okay. So now we're back with Meghan Zobeck at Burgess Cellars, and we're up on your mountain portion of the vineyard. This is the Sorensen vineyard where you have some old vines, and things are different here than they are on the valley floor for the first obvious reason. Do not adjust your sets. We are on a steep slope here. How do you manage cover crop for steep slope versus the valley floor? What's the difference?
So on the steep slope, we're definitely concentrating on preventing soil erosion just because of the hillside. So we're looking for kind of a thicker root base in the cover crops. We have a lot of grasses up here to kind of keep the soil in place. That's really kind of the biggest thing we're looking for, is to prevent soil erosion.
And you're not tilling up here. You can't use a tractor. Aeration of the soil, which we talked about down below, is that a different thing here because this soil is less fertile and you don't want it moving around in terms of erosion? So how do you approach that?
Yeah, so these soils are naturally aerated actually because there's a high like rock content, so it's very volcanic, lots of boulders. So naturally, we have a lot of air and water pathways just based on the soil.
So then the flip side of that, the organic material and the microbial activity you want, is that a factor in terms of the cover crop that you use?
Yes, so we always want to keep the microbial load high. So here we're managing that with, like every other property, a lot of different types of cover crops. So we've got cereals, grasses, flowering species. We're not as worried about radish in this area because we don't need to really break up the soils quite as much. So our main focus is on
The root structure of the cover crop is just as important.
yes, exactly.
All right.
Yes.
And then you have old vines here. So competition for the vines, is that more of an issue in old vines versus younger vines?
We're not as worried about it. These old vines have seen so many things, and naturally they were never receiving a lot of water, so they're really good at being resilient, kind of no matter what. Also, the cover crop that's up here doesn't grow quite as lush as the cover crop on the valley floor, only because it is a harder environment to grow. It's not as fertile. So you see the cover crops stay a lot smaller in this area.
And then last question, now that you've been working in this vineyard for about 3-4 years, what do you see differently since you've changed the approach to cover crop here in either the fruit or the ensuing wines?
We're seeing, it's really cool. We're actually seeing a lot of flowering species popping up that we didn't see it here. So it's really cool to see the diversity and the natural diversity changing over the years. I'd say, I'm very partial to these old vines. They're some of my favorites, especially because Bill Sorensen made wine from them, who is the first winemaker here. I think with the health of the vineyard increasing every year, with us putting a lot of effort into soil health, we just see the wines getting better and better, which is what you want.
All right. Meghan Zobeck, thanks. Cover Crop 101, Valley Floor to Mountainside at Burgess Cellars.
Thanks, James.